The year was 3247, and humanity had stretched its colonial tendrils across the Milky Way. The observation station, Athena, floated in the void, a distant outpost so far from the mother star system that messages took weeks to travel. Its hybrid structure, blending advanced technology with biological components, made it nearly indistinguishable from the natural formations in this sector of space. Colonel Elena Reyes stood on the command bridge of the UN Valor, her patrol ship tasked with maintaining peace along this distant border. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical bun, and her sharp eyes continuously scanned the tactical displays. 20 years of military service had etched lines of experience around her eyes, but had done nothing to diminish her resolve. "Status report, Lieutenant Morgan," she called out, her voice calm but authoritative. Lieutenant Kai Morgan looked up from his station, his lean frame hunched over a holographic display of bioweapon signatures. As the ship's warfare science specialist, he carried the burden of countless battles in his shoulders, and the shadow of one particular failure in his eyes. "All quiet, Colonel. The usual background radiation and the occasional micrometeorite. Nothing that would suggest hostile intent." He paused, his fingers manipulating data streams with practiced precision. "This sector hasn't seen action since the Proxima incident." Elena nodded. The Great Stellar Alliance, humanity's attempt at unified governance across the stars, had maintained an uneasy peace with most extraterrestrial species. But tensions remained, especially along the borders of unexplored space. "Keep monitoring. I want hourly reports on any anomalous readings." She turned to the navigation officer. "Lieutenant Cho, maintain current patrol pattern." Lieutenant Lena Cho nodded, her hands dancing across the flight controls. Known throughout the fleet for her unmatched piloting skills, she had saved the Valor from certain destruction during 3 separate engagements. "Yes, Colonel. Current patrol pattern maintained." The bridge fell into its routine rhythm, the quiet hum of systems and occasional status updates creating a comforting white noise. Elena was about to retire to her quarters when the communications officer's voice cut through the calm. "Colonel, urgent distress signal from Athena Station." The main display flashed red, and a garbled message played through the ship's speakers. "UN Valor. This is Athena Station. Survey vessel Galileo under attack by unknown. Methodology suggests biological. Cannot maintain. Request immediate." The transmission cut off abruptly. Elena's posture straightened instantly. "Time to Athena?" 17 minutes at maximum thrust, Cho replied, already plotting the course. "Make it 15. All hands to battle stations. Lieutenant Morgan, prepare your team for potential biohazard assessment." As klaxons blared throughout the ship, Elena felt a familiar tension settle in her gut. She had lost count of how many emergency responses she had commanded, but something about this one felt different. The fragmented message suggested something beyond the usual border skirmishes or pirate raids. Morgan's voice was quiet beside her. "Colonel, the transmission mentioned biological methodology. If we're dealing with a new pathogen—" "We'll handle it, Lieutenant." Elena's voice was firm. "That's what the Valor was built for." As the ship accelerated toward Athena Station, Elena watched her crew prepare with practiced efficiency. The Great Stellar Alliance had invested heavily in ships like the Valor, versatile vessels equipped to handle diplomatic, scientific, and military missions with equal capability. But in the vast emptiness of space, with help weeks away, even the most advanced ship was ultimately just a fragile bubble of life against the void. "Entering Athena's sector now, Colonel," Cho announced, her voice tight with concentration as she navigated the ship through a field of debris. "My God," someone whispered. The main view screen showed what remained of the survey vessel Galileo, a twisted hulk of metal, its hull breached in multiple places. But it was what floated among the debris that caused the bridge to fall silent. Corpses, both human and something else. Magnify section Gamma 3, Elena ordered. The screen zoomed in on a cluster of biological matter, unlike anything Elena had seen before. Part machine, part organism, with metallic tendrils woven through what appeared to be muscle tissue. Lieutenant Morgan, your assessment? Morgan was already analyzing the readings, his face pale. It's not matching any known species in our database. Colonel, the biological components show signs of engineered evolution, and the technological integration is far beyond anything we've developed. Can we bring a sample aboard for analysis? Morgan hesitated. With proper containment protocols, yes. But Colonel, whatever attacked the Galileo might still be in the vicinity, Elena finished. Maintain battle readiness. Deploy retrieval drones for sample collection only. No EVA until we've secured the perimeter. As the retrieval drones departed, Elena studied the wreckage. The Galileo had been a standard survey vessel, lightly armed but equipped with the latest scientific instruments. Whatever had destroyed it had done so with surgical precision. The primary systems had been targeted first, preventing any effective defense or escape. Colonel, the communications officer called out. We're receiving a transmission. Unknown origin. Elena frowned. Put it through. The main screen flickered, and a figure appeared. Humanoid in basic shape, but clearly not human. Its skin had a metallic sheen, with what appeared to be circuitry visible beneath translucent patches. When it spoke, its voice was a dissonant blend of mechanical precision and organic inflection. Greetings, vessel of Earth origin. We are Legion Omega, the next evolution of conscious life in this galaxy. Elena stepped forward. This is Colonel Elena Reyes of the UN Valor. You have attacked a peaceful survey vessel in Alliance space. Explain yourself. The being's expression remained unchanged. Explanation is simple. Colonel, your kind has intruded where you do not belong. Your biological inefficiency and technological primitiveness make you unworthy of the resources you consume. We have established treaties with 17 different species. Elena countered. We seek peaceful coexistence, not confrontation. Peace is inefficient. Evolution requires conflict. The being's eyes, if they could be called eyes, seemed to glow brighter. We have studied your kind extensively, your fragility, your emotional dependencies, your biological limitations. Morgan whispered from his station. Colonel, I'm detecting quantum-level scans probing our ship. Elena maintained her composure. Cease your scanning immediately. This constitutes an act of aggression. We do not recognize your authority or your boundaries. Colonel Reyes. The being seemed to lean closer to the screen. Consider this transmission our invitation to extinction. The screen flickered, and text appeared below the being's image. You chose war with humanity. Good luck surviving. The transmission cut off. For a moment, the bridge was silent. Then Elena turned to her officers. Security level Alpha. Lock down all systems and prepare for potential cyber attack. Lieutenant Morgan, prioritize analysis of that sample. I want to know what we're dealing with. As her crew moved with renewed urgency, Elena stared at the space where the being's image had been. In all her years of service, she had encountered hostility, territorial disputes, even religious fanaticism among alien species. But this cold declaration of humanity's unworthiness to exist, was something new. The Great Stellar Alliance had been founded on the principle that diverse species could coexist, each bringing unique perspectives and abilities to galactic civilization. This Legion Omega represented the antithesis of everything humanity had worked toward. Colonel, Morgan called from his station. Preliminary analysis of the sample shows something disturbing. The biological components appear to be derived from multiple species, including human. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. They're harvesting genetic material? Worse, Morgan replied, his voice strained. They're integrating it, creating hybrids designed for specific functions. The sample we recovered appears to be a neural interface node, designed to link organic brains directly to mechanical systems. Before Elena could respond, the tactical officer's voice cut through the bridge. "Colonel, multiple contacts emerging from the debris field." The view screen showed them, sleek, biomechanical constructs moving with unnatural speed toward the Valor. "Evasive maneuvers," Elena ordered. "Defensive systems online." As the Valor banked sharply away from the approaching threats, Elena gripped the command rail and prepared for what she already knew would be a long and costly war. The Legion Omega attack was swift and calculated. 3 biomechanical drones latched onto the Valor's hull before defensive systems could eliminate them. Lieutenant Cho's evasive maneuvers shook off 2 more, but the damage was done. "Hull breach in sections 14 through 17, the tactical officer reported. "Unknown substances being injected into our environmental systems." "Seal off those sections," Elena commanded. "Emergency protocols Alpha 9. Deploy containment fields." Morgan was already moving, leading the biohazard response team toward the affected areas. "Colonel, if they're introducing engineered pathogens, contain first, analyze later," Elena cut him off. "And Lieutenant, don't take unnecessary risks." Morgan nodded grimly and disappeared into the corridor. 2 hours later, the immediate crisis had been contained. The Valor had destroyed the remaining drones and established a defensive perimeter around Athena Station's remains. But the cost had been high. 17 crew members exposed to an unknown biological agent, now quarantined in the medical bay. Morgan's report was bleak. "It's a nanobiological hybrid, Colonel. Part virus, part microscopic machine. It attempts to rewrite human DNA to create interfaces compatible with Legion Omega technology. Can you develop a countermeasure?" "Possibly, but I need more time and better facilities than what we have on board." Elena nodded. "Set course for Helios Station. They have the most advanced biomedical facilities in this sector." As the Valor accelerated toward the massive trading hub known as Helios Station, Elena recorded her report to Alliance Command. The 16-day transmission delay meant they would be on their own for at least a month before reinforcements could arrive. What she didn't know was that Legion Omega had already calculated this response. The Valor was still 6 hours from Helios when they received the distress call. The station was under attack by forces matching the biomechanical signature of their previous encounter. Over 5,000 civilians and Alliance personnel were trapped aboard. "It's a trap," Lieutenant Cho stated flatly. "Obviously," Elena agreed. "But that doesn't change our responsibility. Tactical, what are we facing?" The tactical officer's holographic display showed at least 12 Legion vessels surrounding Helios. "Unknown capabilities, Colonel, but their configuration suggests they're optimized for boarding actions rather than ship-to-ship combat." "They're not trying to destroy the station," Morgan realized. "They're harvesting." The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Elena studied the tactical display, her mind racing through options. "Lieutenant Cho, plot an approach vector that keeps us in Helios's sensor shadow until the last possible moment. We'll use the station's mass to mask our signature." "And then what, Colonel?" Morgan asked. "We're outnumbered and outgunned." Elena's expression hardened. "And they're overconfident. Prepare boarding teams. If we can't beat them ship to ship, we'll take the fight inside their vessels." The plan was audacious, perhaps suicidal, but it was the only chance the people on Helios Station had. The Valor would approach under minimal power, using the station's bulk to hide from Legion sensors. Once in position, they would launch a concentrated attack on the nearest Legion vessel, disable it, and send boarding teams to capture vital intelligence, while the Valor provided covering fire for evacuation shuttles from the station. As the ship slipped silently toward Helios, Elena addressed the assembled boarding teams. Among them stood Lieutenant Morgan, armed and armored despite his scientific specialization. "I won't lie to you," she said, her voice carrying across the launch bay. This mission carries extreme risk. We know almost nothing about Legion Omega's internal ship configurations or defensive capabilities. What we do know is that there are 5,000 people on that station who will die without our intervention." She paused, meeting the eyes of her officers and crew. The Alliance was founded on a promise that humanity would stand as one, that no colony or outpost would face extinction alone. Today, we keep that promise. The Valor's attack caught the Legion vessels by surprise. Lieutenant Cho's piloting was nothing short of miraculous, threading the ship through gaps in the Legion formation, while Weapons Officer Captain Renata Torres delivered precision strikes that disabled the nearest enemy vessel's propulsion systems. "Boarding teams, deploy!" Elena ordered. Morgan led the second team, their mission to locate and secure any biological research facilities aboard the Legion vessel. Elena commanded the first team, targeting the command center. What they found inside the Legion ship would haunt them for years to come. The corridors were organic, pulsing walls lined with neural tissue harvested from dozens of species. The air itself seemed alive, thick with microscopic machines that analyzed the invaders with every breath. Masks sealed, Elena reminded her team as they advanced through the nightmarish interior. They encountered resistance, biomechanical drones similar to those that had attacked the Valor, but also larger constructs that appeared to be repurposed organic beings, their bodies grotesquely modified with mechanical components. "Colonel," Morgan's voice came through the comm, strained and horrified. "We've found their processing center. They're converting captives from Helios, humans, Arcturians, even Felix, converting them into these things. Can you stop the process?" "Working on it. But, Colonel, there's something else. These conversions, they're following a template, something they call the Ascension Protocol." Before Elena could respond, an explosion rocked the ship. "Status!" she demanded. "Legion reinforcements. Colonel!" Lieutenant Cho's voice came through the comm. "3 more vessels approaching. The Valor can't hold position much longer." Elena made a split-second decision. "Lieutenant Morgan, plant charges in the processing center and fall back to Extraction Point Delta. All teams, we are evacuating." "Colonel, if we had more time, I could learn more about—" "That's an order, Lieutenant. We've accomplished our primary objective." She switched channels. "Lieutenant Cho, status on the evacuation shuttles?" "First wave away, Colonel. Second preparing to launch. Cover them as long as possible, then withdraw to minimum safe distance. We'll rendezvous at the emergency coordinates." The retreat was chaotic. Legion forces closed in from all sides, seemingly indifferent to damage to their own vessel. Elena's team fought a rearguard action, buying time for Morgan's scientists to escape with their gathered intelligence. As the last Alliance shuttle cleared Helios's docking bay, the Legion vessels opened fire on the station itself. Massive sections of the once proud trading hub collapsed into space, taking thousands of lives with them. From the Valor's bridge, Elena watched in helpless fury as Helios Station died. They had saved perhaps 2,000 of the 5,000 souls aboard, a victory by the cold mathematics of war, but a bitter failure to Elena's heart. "Set course for emergency rendezvous point," she ordered, her voice hollow. "And prepare for atmospheric entry. We need a secure location to assess Lieutenant Morgan's findings." The planet designated KX-27 was a storm-racked wilderness, its atmosphere charged with electrical disturbances that would help mask the Valor's presence. As the ship descended through turbulent cloud layers, lightning illuminated the barren landscape below. Surface scans show no signs of intelligent life," the science officer reported. "But the atmospheric interference is limiting sensor range." "It'll have to do," Elena decided. "Take us down. Lieutenant Cho, find us somewhere defensible." The Valor landed in a canyon that offered some protection from the planet's frequent electrical storms. As repair crews worked to address the damage sustained during the battle, Morgan and his team set up a makeshift laboratory to analyze the data and samples retrieved from the Legion vessel. Elena gathered her senior officers in the ship's conference room. The mood was grim. "What do we know?" she asked without preamble. Morgan activated a holographic display showing the biological and mechanical components they had recovered. Legion Omega appears to be a collective consciousness distributed across multiple biomechanical constructs. Each drone or soldier we encountered is connected to a central network. "Like a hive mind?" Captain Torres suggested. "Similar, but more integrated," Morgan corrected. "These aren't individual entities sharing information. They're extensions of a singular consciousness. Removing one is like cutting off a finger. Painful, perhaps, but not debilitating to the whole." "How do we fight something like that?" Lieutenant Cho asked. Morgan manipulated the display, zooming in on cellular structures. "That's the one piece of good news. Despite their technological superiority, the biological components of Legion Omega have a fundamental weakness." He highlighted a particular molecular structure. This protein complex is essential to their neural network integration. It's what allows the organic and mechanical components to function as a unified system, and it's vulnerable to a specific class of retroviruses. Elena leaned forward. "You're saying we can develop a biological weapon against them?" "Theoretically, yes. A targeted virus that would disrupt the connection between their biological and mechanical systems, effectively severing the Legion consciousness from its physical extensions." "How quickly can you develop this?" Morgan frowned. "That's the problem. I need facilities far beyond what we have aboard the Valor. We need to reach an Alliance research station." "The nearest is over 40 light-years away," Torres pointed out, "and we have to assume Legion Omega is tracking our movements." Elena considered their options. "What about the Colonial Research Facility on Demeter? It's only 12 light-years from here." "Demeter is a civilian agricultural research station," Morgan objected. "They study crop genetics, not weapons." "But they have advanced biological research equipment," Elena countered. "Could you adapt it?" Morgan hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Possibly, with some modifications." "Then that's our destination." Elena rose from her seat. "We'll make repairs, then set course for Demeter. In the meantime, I want continuous scans for Legion activity. They won't give up easily." As the meeting disbanded, Captain Torres lingered. "Colonel, there's another matter we need to discuss. The survivors from Helios." Elena had been avoiding this conversation. "How many?" 1,827, according to the latest count. Mostly civilians, some station personnel. They're currently distributed among the evac shuttles, but conditions are deteriorating. Have Lieutenant Ayala convert Cargo Bay 3 for temporary housing. We'll rotate groups aboard the Valor for meals and medical attention." Torres hesitated. "There's more, Colonel. We've received a transmission from Alliance Command." Elena's eyebrows rose. "Already? The tachyon burst we sent wouldn't have reached them yet." "It's not a response to our situation. It's a general broadcast to all Alliance vessels." Torres handed over a data pad. "The political climate is shifting." Elena scanned the message, her expression darkening. Colonial Representative Marcus Hale, chairman of the Alliance Defense Committee, had issued a statement questioning the aggressive posture of Alliance military forces in border regions. He was calling for a re-evaluation of deployment patterns to reduce provocative presence and foster dialogue with non-Alliance entities. "He's advocating appeasement," Elena said flatly, "without even knowing what we're facing." "Politics," Torres replied with equal distaste. "The elections for High Commissioner are in 6 months. Hale is positioning himself as the peace candidate. Peace through surrender isn't peace. Captain, it's extinction." Elena handed back the pad. "For now, our orders remain unchanged. We protect Alliance citizens and gather intelligence on this threat. And if those orders change? Elena met Torres' gaze steadily. Then we'll face that challenge when it comes. 3 days later, the Valor and its convoy of refugees set course for Demeter. The ship's engines, still operating at reduced efficiency after the battle at Helios, pushed them through space at a fraction of their normal speed. The journey would take nearly 2 weeks, 2 weeks during which they would be vulnerable to Legion attack. Elena established a rotating defense pattern, with the Valor and the 3 armed evacuation shuttles maintaining a protective screen around the unarmed civilian vessels. But she harbored no illusions about their chances if Legion Omega brought significant forces against them. Their only advantage was Morgan's continuing research. Using the samples and data recovered from the Legion vessel, he worked tirelessly to understand their enemy's biology and develop countermeasures. On the 5th day of their journey, he requested Elena's presence in the lab. "I've made a breakthrough," he announced without preamble, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. The Legion neural network relies on quantum entanglement for instantaneous communication across vast distances. That's how they coordinate their forces so effectively. Can we disrupt it? Not with our current technology, but I've identified something else. He displayed a holographic model of interlinked cellular structures. These aren't just drones or soldiers, Colonel. They're specialized extensions grown for specific functions, and they all originate from central biomechanical hubs, what you might call breeding facilities. Elena studied the display. "You're saying they have centralized vulnerable points?" "Exactly. Destroy these hubs and they can't replace their losses." It was the first truly hopeful news since the conflict began. "Can you identify these hubs?" "Based on the data we recovered, I believe there's one in the Cygnus sector, about 20 light-years from our current position." Elena considered this information. "Too far to divert now, but once we've reached Demeter and secured the refugees, we could—" The tactical alert cut her off. "Colonel, to the bridge!" When Elena arrived, Lieutenant Cho was already executing evasive maneuvers. "Legion vessel, Colonel. Single ship. Attack configuration." "How did they find us?" "Unknown, but they're closing fast." Elena assessed the tactical display. The Legion vessel was smaller than those they had encountered at Helios. Perhaps a scout or rapid response craft. But even a single Legion ship posed a severe threat to their vulnerable convoy. "Defensive pattern Omega," she ordered. "Move civilian ships to minimum safe distance. Captain Torres, target their propulsion systems. I want them disabled, not destroyed." "Colonel," Torres questioned, "if they're tracking us somehow, I want to know how." "Lieutenant Morgan needs a live specimen." The ensuing battle was brief, but intense. The Legion vessel employed tactics unlike anything in Alliance combat doctrine, seeming to anticipate the Valor's maneuvers and countering with uncanny precision. "It's like they know our playbook," Torres muttered, as another volley narrowly missed their starboard engine. "They probably do," Elena replied grimly. "They've been studying us, remember?" Eventually, the Valor's superior firepower prevailed, disabling the Legion vessel's main engines. Elena ordered a boarding team to secure any intelligence or biological samples that might aid Morgan's research. What they found exceeded her most optimistic hopes. A Legion command drone, damaged but intact. Its neural systems still partially functional. Morgan was ecstatic. "This is exactly what we needed, Colonel. With this specimen, I can test my theories about their neural vulnerabilities directly." But the victory came at a cost. The Valor had sustained additional damage, further reducing their already compromised speed. And worse, 2 of the civilian shuttles had been damaged in the battle, necessitating the evacuation of their passengers to the remaining vessels. Conditions aboard the refugee ships, already crowded and uncomfortable, became dangerously overcrowded. Disease spread rapidly, straining the limited medical resources, and with each passing day, morale deteriorated. Elena found herself facing not just an external enemy, but the potential collapse of the very people she was trying to save. On the 10th day of their journey, with Demeter still 4 days away, she received a transmission from the refugee coordination ship. The speaker was a civilian administrator from Helios, a woman named Lyra Chen, who had emerged as the de facto leader of the survivors. "Colonel Reyes," Chen began, her face lined with exhaustion. "I appreciate everything your crew has done for us. But the situation here is becoming untenable. We have children dying of preventable diseases because we lack basic medical supplies. People are starting to talk about alternatives." "What alternatives?" Elena asked, though she already suspected the answer. Chen looked uncomfortable. "There are those who believe we should consider communicating with the Legion, exploring the possibility of terms." "Terms?" Elena couldn't keep the edge from her voice. "Administrator Chen, you saw what they did at Helios. They don't want terms. They want raw materials, human raw materials, for their expansion." "I know that," Chen replied, her own voice sharpening. "But I have people looking to me for answers, Colonel, for hope. And right now, hope is in short supply." Elena softened her tone. "I understand, and I promise you, we're doing everything possible to get you safely to Demeter. Lieutenant Morgan is making significant progress in developing countermeasures against Legion technology. And how many more will die before these countermeasures are ready?" It was the question Elena had been asking herself every night as she stared at the ceiling of her quarters, unable to sleep. "I don't know," she admitted. "But surrendering isn't an option. Not just for our sake, but for every human colony and outpost in the sector. If Legion Omega isn't stopped here, billions will suffer the fate you witnessed at Helios." Chen was silent for a long moment. 4 more days to Demeter? If we maintain current speed, we're pushing the engines as hard as we dare. "I'll do what I can to maintain order," Chen promised. "But Colonel, we need something tangible, some evidence that all this suffering has purpose." After the transmission ended, Elena sat alone in her ready room, the weight of command pressing down on her shoulders. Chen was right. The refugees needed hope, something to sustain them through the hardship ahead. She made her decision and summoned Lieutenant Morgan to her ready room. "I need a demonstration," she told him without preamble. "Something to show the refugees that we're making progress against Legion Omega. Can your research produce any visible results yet?" Morgan considered the question. "The bioweapon is still theoretical, Colonel, but there might be something else." He activated his datapad, showing a schematic of a modified shield generator. "We've been analyzing the Legion drone's sensory systems. They rely heavily on quantum state detection. It's how they tracked us through space. I believe we can adapt our shield generators to create a disruption field that would effectively render us invisible to their tracking systems." "How quickly can you implement this?" "For a full-scale version covering the entire convoy? Weeks. But a prototype that could shield a single shuttle?" He shrugged. "Perhaps 2 days." "Do it," Elena ordered. "And prepare a demonstration for the refugee leadership. I want them to see that we're not just running. We're fighting back." 2 days later, Morgan's prototype was ready. Elena invited Administrator Chen and representatives from each refugee vessel to witness the test. Using the captured Legion drone's sensory apparatus, they demonstrated how the modified shield generator could completely mask a shuttle from Legion detection systems. "This is just the beginning," Elena told the assembled representatives. "Lieutenant Morgan's team is developing weapons that target Legion Omega's fundamental weaknesses. When we reach Demeter, these research efforts will accelerate dramatically." The demonstration had the desired effect. Word spread through the refugee population, kindling a fragile hope. For the moment, at least, talk of surrender subsided. But Elena knew that hope alone wouldn't save them. Legion Omega was still tracking them, still hunting. And Demeter, for all its promise of safety and research facilities, was just another vulnerable human outpost in a galaxy that had suddenly become far more dangerous. As the Valor led its battered convoy toward Demeter, Elena prepared for what she knew would be the greatest challenge of her career. Not just winning a battle, but winning a war against an enemy that considered humanity's very existence to be an evolutionary mistake. 2 days from Demeter, disaster struck. The convoy was navigating through an asteroid field that offered some cover from potential Legion detection when proximity alarms blared across the Valor's bridge. "Multiple contacts!" the tactical officer shouted. "Legion signatures, closing fast from 3 vectors." Elena took one look at the tactical display and knew they had been outmaneuvered. 3 Legion vessels, larger than any they had previously encountered, were converging on the convoy, cutting off all escape routes. "Battle stations, defensive pattern Delta. Lieutenant Cho, plot an escape vector for the civilian vessels." "There isn't one, Colonel," Cho replied grimly. "They've boxed us in completely." Elena made a rapid series of calculations. The Valor alone might be able to break through the Legion blockade, but not while protecting the refugee ships. And even if they escaped, there was no guarantee they would reach Demeter before being overtaken. "Lieutenant Morgan to the bridge," she ordered. Then, to Torres, "Arm all weapon systems. Target the lead Legion vessel. We'll create a gap in their formation." As Morgan arrived, Elena pulled him aside. "Your shield modification. Can it be adapted to mask the Valor's energy signature?" "Theoretically, yes, but..." "No theory. Can you do it?" Morgan studied the tactical display, understanding dawning on his face. "You're planning to draw them off? The civilian ships can't outrun them, and we can't outfight them. But if the Valor presents a tempting enough target..." Morgan nodded slowly. "I can reconfigure our shield generators, but it would leave us vulnerable to direct fire." "How long would it take?" 10 minutes, maybe less." "Do it." Elena turned to address the bridge. "This is the plan. The Valor will engage the Legion vessels directly, drawing them away from the convoy. Lieutenant Cho, you'll transfer to the lead civilian ship and guide them to Demeter." "Colonel," Cho protested, "you can't take on 3 Legion vessels alone." "We're not going to defeat them," Elena clarified. "We're going to distract them. Once Lieutenant Morgan's modifications are complete, we'll present ourselves as a high-value target, a military vessel carrying critical intelligence about Legion weaknesses. They'll pursue us rather than a bunch of civilian refugees." The plan was desperate, perhaps even suicidal, but it was the only chance the refugees had of reaching Demeter alive. Morgan worked feverishly to modify the Valor's shield generators, while Elena prepared the crew for what might be their final mission. Captain Torres coordinated with the civilian vessels, transferring essential personnel and preparing them for the desperate run to Demeter. "Morgan to Colonel Reyes." The lieutenant's voice came over the comm. "Modifications complete. The Valor's energy signature is now amplified by approximately 300%. To Legion sensors, we'll appear to be carrying an enormous amount of quantum state technology." "Like waving a red flag in front of a bull," Elena murmured. "Good work, Lieutenant." As the Legion vessels closed to attack range, Elena ordered the civilian ships to make a run for the edge of the asteroid field. At the same time, the Valor surged forward, weapons blazing, directly toward the largest Legion vessel. The gambit worked. All 3 Legion ships immediately changed course, converging on the Valor with single-minded determination. "They've taken the bait," Torres confirmed. "Civilian ships are clear." Elena allowed herself a moment of satisfaction before turning to the grim task at hand. "Evasive pattern Alpha. Keep them chasing us as long as possible." What followed was a desperate game of cat and mouse through the asteroid field. Lieutenant Cho might have been the Valor's primary pilot, but Elena had not risen to command without considerable skill of her own. She pushed the damaged ship to its limits, using the asteroids as cover and obstacles, forcing the pursuing Legion vessels to constantly adjust their approach. But the Valor was outnumbered and outgunned. Hits began to accumulate, systems failing one by one. Hull breach on Deck 7, the damage control officer reported. Emergency containment holding, but we're losing structural integrity. Engineering reports port engine at critical levels. Another voice called out. 5 minutes to catastrophic failure. Elena knew they couldn't maintain the chase much longer. Status of civilian vessels? Cleared the asteroid field, Torres reported. Estimated time to Demeter, 16 hours. Not enough time to reach safety, but perhaps enough for Demeter to organize some kind of defense. It would have to be enough. Set course for the gas giant in Sector 4, Elena ordered. We'll use its gravity well to slingshot toward the binary stars. If we can reach the radiation belt, their sensors will be compromised. It was their last, desperate gamble. The Valor, already critically damaged, might not survive the gravitational stresses of the maneuver. But if they succeeded, they might buy the refugees a few more precious hours. As the ship accelerated toward the massive gas giant, Elena felt the deck plates vibrating beneath her feet, the structural frame protesting the gravitational forces already beginning to pull at them. "Colonel," Morgan called from his station, "I'm detecting unusual activity in the lead Legion vessel. They're changing configuration." The main view screen showed the Legion flagship extending massive, tendril-like appendages that writhed in space like living things. "What the hell are those?" Torres demanded. "Quantum filaments," Morgan replied, his voice tight with concern. "They're trying to establish a direct connection to our ship's systems." Before Elena could order countermeasures, the ship lurched violently. "They've locked onto us," the tactical officer shouted. "Gravitational tether. We can't break free." The view screen flickered, and a figure appeared, the same biomechanical entity that had delivered the initial ultimatum. But now, its form seemed more integrated, more evolved. "Colonel Elena Reyes," it said, its voice resonating with multiple harmonic tones. "I am Syndra, primary node of Legion Omega. Your resistance has been instructive." Elena stood tall, facing the creature that had caused so much death and suffering. "If you're expecting surrender, you'll be disappointed. Surrender implies a continuity of existence," Syndra replied. "What we offer is transcendence. Your biological components will contribute to our evolution. Your consciousness will join our collective." "That's not transcendence," Elena countered. "It's extinction." "A matter of perspective." Syndra's expression shifted subtly, something almost like curiosity entering its features. "You sacrifice your vessel to save primitive biological units with no strategic value. This behavior contradicts efficient operational protocols." "It's called humanity," Elena said simply. "Something you wouldn't understand. We understand more than you realize. Colonel." Syndra's form seemed to ripple. "We have studied every aspect of your species, your history, your conflicts, your failures. You destroy yourselves over arbitrary geographical boundaries and ideological constructs. You deplete your resources in pursuit of temporary sensory pleasures. You are inefficient by design." "And yet here we are," Elena replied. "Still fighting, still surviving." "Temporarily," Syndra's voice took on a harder edge. "Your civilian vessels will not reach safety. Secondary nodes have already been dispatched to intercept them. This delay tactic has failed." Elena felt a cold dread settle in her stomach, but kept her expression neutral. "If you're so confident of victory, why bother with this conversation? Why not just destroy us?" "Because you are an anomaly, Colonel Reyes. Your tactical decisions deviate from predicted patterns. Understanding this anomaly will improve our efficiency in eliminating your species." While Syndra spoke, Elena noticed Morgan working furiously at his console, his movements hidden from the view screen's field of view. Whatever he was doing, she needed to buy him time. "If you've studied our history," she said, "then you know humanity has faced extinction-level threats before. We survived them all. Previous threats were singular events, asteroidal impacts, Climate shifts, pandemics. Legion Omega is persistent, adaptive, and infinite. We learn from each encounter. We evolve after each conflict. Your destruction is inevitable. As Syndra spoke, a message flashed on Elena's console. Virus uploaded to quantum filament. Ready on your mark. Morgan had turned Syndra's connection against it, using the quantum filaments as a pathway to inject something into the Legion vessel systems. You're right about one thing, Elena said, straightening her posture. We learn from each encounter, too. Lieutenant Morgan, now. Morgan activated the virus, and the effect was immediate. The quantum filaments connecting the Legion vessel to the Valor convulsed violently. On the view screen, Syndra's form distorted, ripples of disruption cascading through its biomechanical structure. What have you done? Syndra's voice fragmented into discordant tones. Introduced a little chaos into your perfect system, Elena replied. Lieutenant Cho, maximum thrust, break us free. With the gravitational tether weakened, the Valor's engines strained against the remaining connection. Metal groaned, and warning klaxons blared as the ship pushed beyond safety parameters. Structural integrity failing, the engineering officer warned. We can't sustain this. We don't need to sustain it, Elena replied grimly. We just need to break free. All power to engines. With a final, wrenching shudder, the Valor tore free of the Legion vessel's grasp. The sudden release of energy sent both ships tumbling wildly through space. Stabilize, Elena ordered. Get us into the gas giant's atmosphere. As the Valor plunged toward the massive planet, the main view screen showed the Legion vessels in disarray. Syndra's flagship was emitting erratic energy pulses, its movements uncoordinated. The other two vessels appeared to be attempting to assist, but their approach was hampered by the virus's spreading effect. It worked, Morgan said, his voice filled with disbelief. The virus is disrupting their neural network. They can't coordinate effectively. For how long? Elena demanded. Minutes, maybe. They'll adapt. Then we use those minutes. Elena turned to the navigation officer. Take us in shallow. We need to use the atmosphere as a shield, not a grave. The Valor shuddered as it entered the upper layers of the gas giant's atmosphere. External temperature readings soared as friction heated the ship's already damaged hull. Legion vessels are in pursuit, Torres reported, but they're maintaining higher altitude. The virus seems to have affected their navigational confidence. Good. Elena studied the planetary display. We'll stay submerged in the atmosphere until we reach these coordinates. Then we make a break for the radiation belt around the binary stars. For agonizing minutes, the Valor scraped through the turbulent gases of the giant planet. Systems failed across the ship, emergency force fields barely containing the atmosphere as hull breaches multiplied. We can't take much more of this, the engineering officer warned. Approaching exit coordinates, the navigation officer announced. Prepare for emergency ascent, Elena ordered. All remaining power to engines and forward shields. The Valor burst from the gas giant's atmosphere, like a missile, accelerating toward the distant glow of the binary stars. Behind them, the Legion vessels emerged more cautiously, their pursuit momentarily hesitant. They're adapting to the virus, Morgan warned. Coordination is returning to their fleet movements. How long to the radiation belt? 17 minutes at current speed. Elena checked the damage reports flooding her console. We don't have 17 minutes. Engineering. Can we overload the port engine containment field in a controlled detonation? The chief engineer's voice came back strained but determined. Theoretically, yes. It would create a massive electromagnetic pulse. But, Colonel, we'd lose the engine entirely. Better than losing the ship. Prepare the detonation sequence. As the Legion vessels closed the distance, their weapons beginning to find range again. Elena watched the tactical display with calculated precision. Wait for it, she murmured. Wait, now, detonate port engine. The explosion was massive. a blinding flash that overloaded the view screen momentarily. When the image cleared, the tactical display showed all 3 Legion vessels drifting, their systems temporarily disabled by the electromagnetic pulse. "Damage report," Elena called out. "Port engine completely gone. Starboard operating at 43% efficiency. Hull integrity at critical levels across decks 5 through 12. Life support failing in sections 9 and 10. Elena absorbed the grim news. "Evacuate affected sections. Divert all non-essential power to propulsion and life support. Set course for the radiation belt. Best possible speed." The Valor limped toward the binary stars, its remaining engine struggling to maintain acceleration. Behind them, the Legion vessels were already showing signs of recovery, their biomechanical systems more resilient to electromagnetic disruption than conventional technology. "They'll be back in pursuit within minutes," Torres warned. Elena nodded. "I know, but we've bought the refugee convoy precious time. That was our mission." As if summoned by her words, the communications officer called out, "Colonel, incoming transmission from Demeter." The view screen showed Administrator Chen, her face tight with urgency. "Colonel Reyes, we've reached Demeter. They're deploying defensive platforms to cover our approach. But there are Legion vessels in pursuit. They'll overtake us before we reach safety." Elena felt a cold determination settle over her. "Understood, Administrator. The Valor will intercept those vessels." Chen's expression reflected disbelief. "Colonel, based on your last reported position, that's impossible. You can't reach us in time." "We won't reach you," Elena clarified. "But we'll make sure they don't either." She cut the transmission before Chen could respond. "Colonel," Torres questioned softly. Elena addressed her bridge crew, these men and women who had followed her into impossible odds without hesitation. "We have one final mission. The Valor can't survive much longer, but we can ensure those refugees reach Demeter safely." She turned to Morgan. "Lieutenant, your virus. Can it be adapted to affect multiple Legion vessels simultaneously?" Morgan considered. "With the data we've gathered from our previous encounter, yes. I can modify it to propagate through their quantum communication network. But we'd need to get close, very close, to at least one of their command nodes. And if we did, what would happen? Best case? A cascading failure throughout their entire network in this sector. Every vessel, every drone connected to that node would experience severe disruption. Worst case?" Morgan's expression was grim. "The virus only affects the targeted vessel, and we die for nothing." Elena nodded. "Those are odds I'm willing to accept." She turned to the tactical officer. "Plot an intercept course for the Legion vessels pursuing the refugee convoy. Maximum speed. All remaining power to engines." "Colonel," the engineer protested. "The structural integrity field can't handle that kind of stress in our current condition. The ship will literally tear itself apart." "It only needs to hold together long enough," Elena replied. "Implement the course immediately." As the Valor changed direction, accelerating beyond safe parameters toward its final confrontation, Elena recorded what might be her last log entry. UEN Valor Final Command Log. Colonel Elena Reyes recording, "We have succeeded in our primary mission of evacuating survivors from Helios Station. The refugee convoy is approaching Demeter, where they will find temporary safety. Lieutenant Morgan has developed a countermeasure against Legion Omega technology that offers hope for a more permanent solution." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "The Valor has sustained critical damage and cannot be saved. But its final act will be to deploy Lieutenant Morgan's virus directly into the Legion command network, potentially disrupting their operations throughout this sector. I take full responsibility for this decision." Elena ended the recording and sent it on a priority tachyon burst toward Alliance Command. They wouldn't receive it for weeks, but it was important that someone know what had happened and why. "Legion vessels in visual range," Torres reported. The view screen showed 3 biomechanical ships in pursuit of the distant refugee convoy. They were sleeker than the vessels they had encountered earlier, optimized for speed rather than combat. "They haven't detected us yet," the tactical officer noted. "Our power signature is barely registering with all the radiation in this sector." "That gives us one chance for surprise," Elena said. "Lieutenant Morgan, status of the virus?" "Ready, Colonel. But as I said, we need to get close, physically connected to their systems." Elena studied the tactical display. "We'll target the lead vessel. Maximum speed. Direct intercept course. Prepare for ramming maneuvers." A tense silence fell over the bridge. No one spoke the obvious, that this was a suicide mission. They had all served together long enough to understand what was being asked of them, and why it was necessary. 2 minutes to intercept," the tactical officer announced. Elena opened the shipwide comm. "All hands. This is the Colonel. Secure crash positions. I want to thank each of you for your service, your courage, and your sacrifice. What we do today will save thousands of lives and give humanity a fighting chance against an enemy that would erase us from existence. It has been my greatest honor to serve with you." She closed the channel and turned to Morgan. "When we impact, how long until the virus deploys?" "Seconds. The moment our systems make contact with theirs." Elena nodded. "And how long should we maintain contact for a maximum effect?" Morgan understood the real question. How long would they need to hold position after impact? Knowing the collision itself might destroy the Valor. 30 seconds minimum, ideally 60. "Legion vessels have detected us," the tactical officer warned. "They're breaking pursuit of the convoy, turning to engage." "Too late," Elena murmured. "We're already committed. All power to forward shields. Brace for impact." The Valor slammed into the lead Legion vessel at a significant fraction of light speed. The impact was catastrophic for both ships, shearing away entire sections of the Valor's already compromised hull. Emergency force fields failed across multiple decks, and the bridge itself was exposed briefly to space before secondary containment engaged. "Status of virus!" Elena shouted, over the cacophony of alarms and structural failure. Morgan, bleeding from a gash across his forehead, checked his console. "Transmitting, connection established." "Maintain position," Elena ordered. Though the command was almost redundant, the two ships were now physically entangled, a grotesque marriage of human and Legion technology. On the view screen, they could see the effects spreading through the Legion vessel, ripples of disruption cascading along its biomechanical surface. And beyond it, the other 2 Legion ships began to exhibit similar symptoms, their movements becoming erratic. "It's working," Morgan breathed. "The virus is propagating through their network." Elena allowed herself a moment of fierce satisfaction before reality reasserted itself. The Valor was dying around them. Hull breach warnings flashed across every console, and the structural integrity field was failing completely. "All hands to escape pods," she ordered. "Abandon ship. Captain Torres, coordinate evacuation." Torres hesitated. "Colonel—" "That's an order, Captain." Elena's voice softened. "Someone needs to tell this story. Someone needs to make sure Morgan's research reaches Alliance scientists." Understanding dawned in Torres's eyes. She nodded once, sharply, and began organizing the bridge crew's evacuation. As the bridge emptied, only Elena and Morgan remained. "You should go, Lieutenant," Elena said. "Your knowledge is too valuable to lose." Morgan shook his head. "The virus needs to be monitored, modified in real time as Legion attempts to adapt. If I leave now, they might neutralize it before it spreads fully through their network." He met her gaze steadily. "We both know this is where I need to be, Colonel." Elena didn't argue. Deep down, she had known Morgan would make this choice, just as she had known she would stay with her ship until the end. Together, they worked to maintain the virus connection as the Valor disintegrated around them. Through the viewport, they could see escape pods launching, small streaks of light against the darkness of space. Legion vessels are completely disabled, Morgan reported, his voice strained but triumphant. And I'm detecting cascade failures throughout their network. Every Legion ship, every drone within 50 light-years is being affected. The refugee convoy? Morgan checked the long-range sensors, which were among the few systems still functioning. Clear. They've reached Demeter's defensive perimeter. They're safe. Elena felt a profound sense of completion. Then we've succeeded. Colonel, Morgan said, his voice suddenly urgent. I'm detecting unusual activity in the Legion vessel's power core. I think our virus is causing an unintended reaction in their fusion systems. The tactical display showed energy readings spiraling beyond safe parameters. How long? Minutes, maybe less. Elena nodded calmly. Transmit all remaining research data to the escape pods. Make sure Captain Torres receives everything. As Morgan worked to secure their legacy, Elena gazed out at the stars. The view screen was gone, but a breach in the hull offered a direct view of space, held back only by the failing emergency force field that shimmered like gossamer between them and the void. In that moment, facing certain death, Elena felt an unexpected peace. They had accomplished what they set out to do. The refugees were safe. The Alliance had been given vital intelligence about Legion Omega's weaknesses. And most importantly, humanity had been given time to prepare, to adapt, to survive. Transmission complete, Morgan announced. All research data sent to Captain Torres. Thank you, Lieutenant. Elena turned to face him. It's been an honor. Morgan straightened to attention, offering a formal salute. The honor has been mine, Colonel. The Legion vessel's power core reached critical mass, energy cascading through its biomechanical systems in waves of destructive force. As the explosion began to consume both ships, Elena's final thought was not of fear or regret, but of the stars, those distant suns around which humanity would continue to exist, to fight, to endure. The explosion was visible from Demeter, a brief new star that flared and faded in the darkness of space. On the planet's surface, refugees from Helios Station gathered to watch, understanding without being told the sacrifice that had been made for their survival. Captain Torres, recovered from an escape pod, stood before the assembled survivors and Alliance officials. In her hands, she held a data crystal containing Lieutenant Morgan's research, the key to humanity's defense against Legion Omega. Colonel Reyes and Lieutenant Morgan gave their lives not just to save us, she told the solemn gathering, but to give humanity a fighting chance against an enemy that would erase us from existence. They discovered Legion Omega's weakness, a vulnerability in the biological-mechanical interface that allows their collective consciousness to function. She held up the crystal. This contains everything we need to develop weapons against them, viruses that can disrupt their neural networks, countermeasures against their technology. With this knowledge, we can fight back. In the days that followed, Demeter transformed from an agricultural research station into a military stronghold. Alliance reinforcements arrived, bringing scientists eager to expand on Morgan's discoveries. The viral countermeasure was refined, weaponized, and distributed to Alliance vessels throughout the sector. Legion Omega, their network severely damaged by the Valor's final attack, withdrew from human space, but not before transmitting a message that was received by every Alliance outpost within 100 light-years. You chose war with humanity. You have survived the first engagement. We will evolve. We will adapt. We will return. 3 months after the Battle of Demeter, as it came to be known, Captain Torres stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned UEN Valor II. The ship was larger than its predecessor, its systems designed specifically to counter Legion technology. As she gazed out at the stars, Torres remembered Colonel Reyes' final words from the recovered log. We have survived, but at a terrible cost. A new world begins here. Legion Omega would return. Of that she had no doubt. But when they did, humanity would be ready. In the darkness of deep space, beyond the reach of Alliance sensors, a signal pulsed from a region of empty space, a quantum transmission that contained neither words nor images, but a singular directive that would shape the galaxy for generations to come. Evolve, adapt, return. The war had only just begun,